This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Are the Browns bulletproof? Of course, no team is truly bulletproof. The title is a little bit hyperbolic, but the question that's being asked at the heart of that question is, what could go wrong with this team? Is there anything that you see a check engine light on? Is there anything to be concerned about with this team? And like any roster in the NFL, there's going to be stuff to be concerned about. So we're going to go through every position group and talk about what concerns us about every position group and where those questions are, and kind of talk about if this Browns team is deep enough, if this Browns team is talented enough to be able to withstand the same amount of blows, if necessary, that they did last year, and maybe even be more successful than they were while sustaining those blows. Now, obviously, knock on wood, we hope that none of these things happen. We hope that everything goes well for the Cleveland Browns. But this is an exercise to make sure that we stay aware of everything that could happen with the Cleveland Browns. So let's start at the obvious position, quarterback, because I think there are three areas where most people freak out about. It's quarterback, it's Nick Chubb, it's new offense. And when you look at this thing with Deshaun Watson, on paper, there is not a ton to be encouraged about. I would argue that the story on film and the story when you watch the games is a little bit different than what the on-paper stuff tells you. But the on-paper stuff is the on-paper stuff, and the on-paper stuff is what made a lot of people okay with trading for Deshaun Watson. So you kind of expect some of this stuff on paper to be a little bit better than what it's been while he's been the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. You worry about his ability to stay healthy above everything, right? I think most of us can agree that the Browns have their best chance to win football games when Deshaun Watson is out there. But that's the question. Is he going to be out there? Now, what kept him out in 2022, you don't really worry about that reoccurring, because if a situation like that pops up with Deshaun Watson where he gets accused of more things, he will probably just be released from the contract with cause, and they won't have to worry about paying him a single dime. So you don't worry about another suspension situation, right? You're not about to sit through another suspension with him. What you do worry about is the reoccurring injuries, especially to his throwing shoulder that happened last year. Now, to be fair to Deshaun Watson, he has not been somebody who's missed a ton of games because of injury. Outside of the 6 games he missed in his rookie year due to an ACL tear, he stayed on the field pretty much from 2018 to 2020 with relatively no issues. So it's not like he's been a consistently year-to-year injury-prone guy that's going to be bound to miss a game. If you look at his injury grades, they're not that bad. He doesn't seem to have a serious history of reoccurring injury. He's actually known for playing a ton of football at Clemson, and he played a ton of football when he was at Houston. So is this stuff going to become new? The reason you worry about it, despite his history telling you shouldn't be worried about it, is because he's getting closer to 30. I don't believe he's 30 yet. I think he's 28, about to be 29. But he's inching closer and closer to 30. And we've seen guys like Cam Newton not be able to stay upright for a whole season after they hit 30. We've seen guys like Carson Wentz and more guys who kind of have that similar quasi-reckless style that Deshaun Watson have, not be able to stay upright past the age of 30. And you wonder, even if he does have a successful year this year, does it really guarantee that we're going to get another contract's worth of successful years from Deshaun Watson? It's a real question to ask. And it's a real question that's on the board, and one that we're not going to have an answer to, because even if he balls out this year, you look at what Cam Newton did in 2015, and then you look what he was producing in 2017, just a couple of years later, stark difference, right? Age hit him fast. Now, I'm not saying he's going to age just like that, right? Because you can look at a Josh Allen who hasn't hit those same age walls. You can look at a Brett Favre or a Ben Roethlisberger who he didn't hit those same age walls despite having a more reckless style of play. Those guys adjusted. It seems like the Browns are trying to get Deshaun Watson to adjust just a little bit. And I think that that's going to hopefully be something that plays in how Deshaun Watson plays going forward. But those are still the serious concerns to have about him, even if he does stay healthy. How high is the quarterback play, right? Is he just going to be an above average quarterback like he was last year? Is he going to be able to step up into Pro Bowl level quarterback around like a Dak Prescott to Jalen Hurts level where you might be able to make a Super Bowl with him? Or is he going to be able to play at a Pro Bowl to damn near all pro level like people have expected him to play since he was traded for by the Cleveland Browns? And if he does that, then the Browns could win a Super Bowl with relative ease if they have all the pieces healthy and that going on at quarterback. That gives you a real chance to go toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes without needing extreme good fortune on your side, right? Like you can just kind of beat him straight up and even make a couple mistakes in a game with Pat if you're getting elite quarterback play from this roster. So that's how that whole thing changes. Those are the questions that you have to ask about the quarterback position. Questions I don't really have about it is, hey, if Deshaun misses a game or misses 3 weeks, right, or misses up to 3 weeks, do I really have a concern about the quarterback room? No. I think Jameis Winston has proven that he's fine in that position. He fits what the Browns want to move to. I think Jameis Winston is exactly who you want to have behind Deshaun Watson at this point. I understand people's disappointment that it's not Joe Flacco, but just because it's not Joe Flacco doesn't mean that other good options didn't exist. And Jameis Winston is another good option. You have Tyler Huntley if something else goes wrong. You have PJ Walker always sitting around somewhere who you won games with last year. You got DTR as well. So I'm not worried about anything behind Deshaun. Like if they have to play the role that they have to, obviously if Jameis has to start for the whole season or for most of the season because of an injury thing, then yeah, the expectations are going to have to be reset for this team because Jameis Winston is not the quarterback that's going to bring you to a Super Bowl championship, or at least not when you're going to expect to bring you to a Super Bowl championship. But that goes with literally any backup in like almost half the starters in the NFL. But that's the concerns that you have about the quarterback position. When it comes to running back, there's two questions. Will Nick Chubb be able to produce at a close to Nick Chubb level? I don't think anybody's expecting him to have 5.5 yards a carry and be peak Nick Chubb, even though that would be nice. But is he going to be able to be a version of himself? And do they have enough behind him to withstand if he's not going to be the full Nick Chubb? I do think they did a good job addressing that position with D'Onta Foreman. I think Jerome Ford is a fine change of pace back. And I think Nick Chubb is showing signs in his rehab that he might be able to be back and be better than most people expect. But in the event that that doesn't happen, I do think the Browns have that run game covered. They added a veteran like Nyheim Hines. They have Jerome Ford. They brought in D'Onta Foreman. They have options just in case this thing doesn't go their way. So I do think that they're pretty fine at the running back position. Let's talk about offensive line because this is where it gets intriguing and tricky at the same time because I'm not worried about the right side of this offensive line at all, right? I'm not worried about 4 of the 5 positions on this offensive line at all because, hey, if DeJuan Jones hits a rookie wall, hits a second-year wall and stinks for whatever reason, you can always bring Jack Conklin off the bench and then just let him start for the year while DeJuan Jones figures that out. And that's really the only area where you would have a question, right? That's the only player on this roster that's in their second year that you're going to be relying on to be a starter. So yeah, DeJuan Jones, you have a good solution for that. There's really not much of a problem. Then you move to left tackle and you do have concerns about Jed Wills, right? Specifically with him at left tackle. Now I know people give the suggestion all the time, well, we should just flip this guy here, flip that guy here. Please watch my Vach Lombardi video. Vach Lombardi is a film room offensive line head. He is somebody who has coached offensive linemen. He's somebody who is in contact with some of the best offensive line coaches in the NFL. And when I had him on this channel talking about draft prospects, we talked about offensive linemen switching sides and how difficult that is, and how something is small that we don't think about as which hand are you dominant really affects what way you can go on an offensive line. It's super complicated. It's not as simple as just flipping guys as is in Madden. So the left tackle thing, if you don't get a left tackle in the draft that you feel like can play right away, which is very unlikely, right? Even the guys I like in this draft, Christian Jones, Roger Rosengarten, Kingsley Sumatia, those aren't start right away guys, right? Those are starting a year or two kind of guys if you have to. So you worry about that. You worry about what kind of player Jed Wills is going to be. Is he going to be the guy that showed up in the first half of the season that was a little bit dreadful? Is he going to be the guy that showed up in the second half of the season that was much improved? You got to figure out where Jed Wills is going to sit on that spectrum. Is he going to be able to provide you consistent play? Or is this line going to be so good that it can just compensate for Jed Wills having a bad game? Also, with Ken Dorsey changing up the offense, does this mean that Jed's going to get less help? Like, are they going to leave these tight ends out? Are they not going to chip as much? Are we not going to see as much six-man fronts on the offensive line? Like, are we going to get less help for the tackle position because the Browns want to spread it out and attack more? One of the things that gets Joe Burrow hit so much is because they leave him in 5-man protection pretty much 80% of the time, and that's leaving a lot of one-on-ones on the table for the defensive line. Now you have to ask yourself that same question for the Cleveland Browns. Is Ken Dorsey's offensive changes, is that going to lead to more 5-man protections? Is that going to be something that's really going to expose Jed Wills? This is a question that we won't really have answered until we get into camp, into the season, and really see how this plays out, because it might just be that Ken Dorsey's not going to leave a ton of 5-man protections, and he's going to be a little bit more conservative than what we're guessing. But still something to talk about. Tight end, what do you have outside of David Njoku? We all know that David Njoku is great, but Jordan Akins was brought in to be a clear number 2. I don't think he's proven that yet in the Cleveland Browns uniform. And then after Jordan Akins, literally could not tell you who's the tight ends on the roster. So big questions there. You wonder how many injuries you can withstand. Can you withstand a David Njoku injury, given how critical he was to the run that the Browns made last year, where he was able to turn passes that looked like interceptions into 25, 35-yard receptions? The big question there, how deep are you at tight end? Now, again, you don't have to have 4 or 5 starters at every position, but you do want to feel good about whoever is in that secondary help role at that position. And right now at tight end, you would love to feel better about Jordan Akins. There's reasons to think that his issues in his offense last year weren't necessarily skill related and more about the role he was asked to fill. So if that changes slightly with a new offense, maybe that changes for him. But you worry about it, right? Let's flip to the defense. Is this Browns defense bulletproof? Interestingly enough, when we talk about 26% of the salary cap being on injured reserve, the defense somehow avoided a good chunk of that. It was the offense that lost a ton of guys due to injury, not necessarily the defense. Now, I think the biggest position people look at is linebacker. Like, if JOK goes down, who do we have playing linebacker? I would provide these counterpoints. I just don't think linebacker is that important in what the Browns do. I don't think they're asking these linebackers to do a ton of crazy stuff unless their name is JOK. Obviously, if JOK is not there, it does hurt a little bit. But since you have a defense that also has a Grant Delpit there, you can make up for the playmaking you're going to lose from not having JOK by using Grant Delpit more in that kind of box role that he really thrived in, and I think you'll be able to make up for whatever you miss from JOK there. And that might be the way that the Browns look at it if they don't give JOK a contract this season. But JOK, it would hurt if you don't have him at linebacker, but I think there are ways that they can compensate and they'll be fine for at that position. Jordan Hicks is a fine enough Mike linebacker. And then you can, have a competition between a bunch of guys to see who will be that will linebacker kind of role player position there for that third linebacker spot. Because let's just face it, NFL teams, including the Browns, but a lot of other teams, just aren't running out 3 linebackers out there at a time, right? That's not a real starting position anymore. It's 3 corners, it's 2 linebackers, it's 2 safeties, it's 4 down linemen. That's what the starting package is for a lot of teams. It's what the most commonly used package is for a lot of NFL teams. It's why Greg Newsome is a starter and whoever is the will linebacker, not a starter. So JOK, Jordan Hicks, those are your starters at linebacker. I think you feel fine about that. And then you look at the corner position, you feel fine about those three corners sitting there. If there's an injury to one of them, that's why you have three, so that Greg can rotate over. You could put Cam Mitchell behind Greg Newsome, and you'll be fine. You even upgrade it from your corner but special teams player, right? Because when we had Mike Ford out there covering against the Baltimore Ravens, the results were pretty predictable. He was not a good cover corner. So I think that the Browns upgraded in some meaningful ways, even in that area. So I'm not really worried about them when it comes to corner. I'm not really worried about them when it comes to defensive edge. I'm not really worried about them when it comes to linebacker. The two areas where I would have some concern are free safety and defensive tackle. Now, strong safety, they got that locked down with Rodney McLeod and Grant Delpit. I'm not really worried. DeAnthony Bell can do a great job there. But I think that Ronnie Hickman got exposed in that playoff game really badly by CJ Stroud. And I also think that Juan Thornhill, I don't want to go as far as to say he's been a disappointment, but he has not been a game changer at that safety position. He's just been a solid free safety. And on a defense that's filled with game changers up and down the line, you look at strong safety, Grant Delpit, game changer. You look at corner, you got Martin Emerson and Denzel Ward that are game changers. You got JOK that's a game changer. You got Dalvin Tomlinson that's a game changer. You got Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith. Both of those guys are bona fide game changers. Then you look at safety, free safety, and you're like, well, at best, what Juan Thornhill has been is a solid veteran hand. And I think that you expect a little bit more out of him. So hopefully you get a better level of play from Juan Thornhill in the second year in this Jim Schwartz defense, because I think that that's the one thing that could put this defense over the top is if they had, I don't think they need elite level free safety play, but if they had, Pro Bowl level safety play from that free safety position, I think they would be a much different team to attack, especially with how Miles kind of stresses these offenses out. When it comes to the defensive interior, the reason I'm worried about it is, hey, if Maurice Hurst gets hurt, which he has a history of getting hurt pretty consistently, then you're down to a rotation of Dalvin Tomlinson, Shelby Harris, Quentin Jefferson, which is not terrible. But you are missing a fourth man, and I don't know who that fourth man is going to be. Last year, the fourth man, if Maurice Hurst got hurt, was going to be like Shelby Harris and Jordan Elliott. Now it could be Siaki Ika, and it doesn't seem like they really want to play Siaki Ika. This is why I think it would behoove the Browns to draft a defensive tackle if one falls to them in the spot that they like. It makes sense to them, but that's where I'm at. So are the Browns bulletproof? No team's bulletproof, like I said at the beginning of this video. But this is still a team that's deep enough to withstand a lot of blows. They're not a perfect team. They're not a team free of questions. They have a ton of questions. They have questions at the quarterback position. They have questions at the running back position. But just because they have questions doesn't mean that those questions don't have answers or that those questions are as bad as questions of years past. Yes, they have questions at quarterback, but the question is, will they get above average play? Will their quarterback stay healthy? Or will they get great quarterback play? Much different questions to have about your quarterback position than what we had pre-2018. Yes, they have questions about running back, but the question is, can an elite running back be elite again? Yes, they have questions about left tackle, but the question is, can a good tackle play good consistently? Right? Their questions aren't that serious. So they aren't bulletproof, but they are a team that can withstand a lot and a team that has a roster that's battle tested. But let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.